Hello and welcome to India Votes on Rajya Sabha TV. I am Vaibhav Verma. First up, the headlines. The BJP accuses election officials of bias in Varanasi. Party plans to hold protest against the permission being denied to Narendra Modi's rallies in the temple city. High turnouts across all 7 states for the 8th phase of Lok Sabha elections. Record voting in West Bengal and Simandra. Slew of controversies around polling in Amethi on Wednesday. Congress objects to the BJP's party symbol inside a polling booth. The Aam Aadmi Party alleges booth capturing by the Congress. And BJP moves Election Commission against Priyanka's aide. And meet the first ever voter of independent India. 97-year-old Shyam Saran Negi from Himachal Pradesh felicitated for voting in every single election in independent India. More controversy surrounding Narendra Modi in Varanasi. The BJP has alleged partiality in the denial of permissions for Modi's rallies in the city and demanded removal of the polling officer. Last night, the party declared protest rallies against the Election Commission with a dharna planned at 11 a.m. outside the BHU in Varanasi and the Election Commission office in New Delhi today. The BJP says the polling machinery in Varanasi is working in a biased and prejudiced manner against Modi. In a letter to the Election Commission last night, BJP leader Arun Jaitley said the poll official was verbally informed about 2 rallies and formal letters followed, but permission was refused. However, reports suggest that the party was offered an alternative venue, which they turned down on the grounds of it being too small.
मिलती है या नहीं मिलती मेरी उसमें दिलचस्पी नहीं है। चुनाव में तो हर एक को परमिशन मिलनी चाहिए और अगर हमें 72 घंटे लग जाएंगे और ये रिटर्निंग ऑफिसर हमें अनुमति नहीं देगा तो मुझे लगता है कि निष्पक्ष चुनाव ऐसे रिटर्निंग ऑफिसर के साथ तो हो नहीं सकता।
And our correspondent Kriti joins us from Ghazipur. Kriti, another lash out by the BJP alleging partiality by the Election Commission. Now, how far can they actually get with this latest complaint?
Right, Vaibhav. Battleground 2014 saw no dearth of vitriolic attacks by the political contenders on each other. But yesterday was the day of BJP's onslaught on the Election Commission, who has alleged that the election officer, the returning officer of Varanasi, is behaving in a very partisan manner and has demanded immediate removal of the returning officer. Now, when we spoke to the returning officer, he told us that Benia Bagh, when Mr. Modi wanted to hold the rally, has a sizable Muslim population, and he cited 1991 elections when Shatrughan Sinha held a rally here and there was a serious law and order situation. Now, remember, Vaibhav, Varanasi has already turned into a garrison town of sorts with deployment of 20,000 paramilitary forces and state forces. And given the threats that Mr. Modi has been receiving from all corners, Election Commission, the election officer had the apprehension about it. And remember, Vaibhav, maneuvering and steering law and order situation in Varanasi is not very easy given the geography and the jumbled lanes of the town. So it remains to be seen now. 11 o'clock, BJP would be holding a dharna here, and how Congress would respond to it and how Election Commission would perceive it. It'll be interesting to see, and let's see how things pan out during the day. Back to you, Vaibhav.
Kriti, thank you for joining us. Voters in 7 states, led by a record-breaking West Bengal and Simandra, raked up an impressive turnout, beating the turnout figures of 2009. West Bengal reported a turnout of over 81% in the 6 seats that went to polls. Simandra recorded 76% voting in the parliamentary and simultaneous state assembly elections. Let's take a look at how India voted in the second last phase of this mammoth voting exercise.
यह है लद्दाख संसदीय क्षेत्र का खरदुंगला इलाका। यहीं पर है देश में सबसे ऊंचाई पर स्थित मतदान केंद्र। समुद्र से करीब 5600 मीटर की ऊंचाई पर बसे खरदुंगला में बुधवार को लोगों ने अपने मताधिकार का उपयोग किया। 8वें दौर में लद्दाख के अलावा जम्मू कश्मीर की बारामूला सीट समेत 7 राज्यों की 64 सीटों पर वोट डाले गए। इनमें युवाओं के साथ साथ देश के पहले वोटर हिमाचल प्रदेश के श्याम सरन नेगी ने भी।
And moving on, campaigning for the Lok Sabha elections now enters the final leg. The last phase of the elections will be held on the 12th of May. There's massive election activity in the 41 constituencies going to polls in this phase. BJP Prime Ministerial candidate Narendra Modi was in Kishanganj in West Bengal yesterday. 17 crucial seats go to polls in the last phase in the state. Modi hit out at Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee, calling upon the people to understand the games being played by the government to ensure a stop to progress in the state. Mamta is reported to have hit back. And our correspondent Pranav Goswami joins us from Kolkata. Pranav, massive turf war on between Modi and Mamta in the run-up to the last phase. Tell us what's at stake for the two sides here.
See, we all know that BJP has not done well so far in West Bengal. In 1998, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee formed NDA government, that time also BJP could win only 2 seats. But this time, because of Modi factor, many believe in BJP that BJP could win few seats in West Bengal. That is the reason Narendra Modi is very active in West Bengal in campaigning. And he is addressing his rallies and he is criticizing Mamata Banerjee. He is taunting on various issues on Mamata Banerjee, like Bangladesh illegal infiltration issues. And that is the reason BJP is thinking, and they are very optimistic they can improve their vote share at least in urban areas of West Bengal. As far as Mamata Banerjee is concerned, we all know that in 2009 election Mamata Banerjee had an alliance with Congress, but this time she is contesting alone. So she has this fear that her vote bank can be divided between Congress and CPM. That is the reason Mamata Banerjee is also has been attacking on Narendra Modi.
Okay, Pranav, what are the big issues in these crucial 17 seats of West Bengal that go to the polls on the 12th?
There are so many issues. If you talk about national issues, there are issues like corruption, development. But specifically, there are some issues which are like regional issues. Like I mentioned about Bangladesh illegal infiltration issue. That has been a very long issue in West Bengal, and even Trinamool Congress Supremo Mamata Banerjee has been raising this issue against CPM government. And apart from that, that Sharda Chit Fund company, that issue is also the opposition parties are alleging that Mamata Banerjee's few ministers were involved in that scam. And apart from that, we all know that Mamata Banerjee's anti-industrialization policy could not generate more employment opportunities. So among youth, this is also a very major issue.
Right, Pranav Goswami, thank you for joining us. We'll just slip into a short break now. There's plenty more coming up on the other side. Stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television. Welcome back. Voters in 7 states, led by a record-breaking West Bengal and Simandra, raked up an impressive turnout, beating the turnout figures of 2009 yesterday. West Bengal reported a turnout of over 81% in the seats that went to polls. Simandra recorded 76% in the parliamentary and simultaneously state assembly elections. Let's take a look at how India voted in the second last phase of the mammoth voting exercise.
Brisk polling was seen in most of the 7 states in the 8th phase of Lok Sabha polls on Wednesday. Voters braved the summer heat to queue up at the polling stations to decide the fate of nearly 1,700 candidates. Some of them include heavyweights like Rahul Gandhi, his cousin Varun, Ramvilas Paswan and Rabri Devi.
पहली बार वोट डाल के अच्छा लगा कि हमने देश के विकास में अपना योगदान दिया।
डाल के मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा, जो हमारे देश का और हमारी आने वाली पीढ़ियों का जो भला कर सके, हम उसी के साथ है और उसी को वोट दिया है।
UP was the focus of everyone's attention, particularly Amethi and Sultanpur, where the Gandhi cousins are in the fray. Moderate polling was seen in both seats. Polling was peaceful in the 13 other constituencies as well.
यहाँ पर सवेरे से सारी पार्टियों के लोग हैं, मतदाता में उत्साह है और अभी टाइम जो हुआ है जिस हिसाब से उसके हिसाब से परसेंटेज वोटिंग जो है बहुत अच्छी चल रही है, सब में एक उत्साह है।
Bihar also saw a moderate turnout in the 7 Lok Sabha seats that faced elections. Minor incidents of violence were reported from the Saran constituency, where the workers of 2 parties clashed with each other. West Bengal saw a record turnout in 6 Lok Sabha constituencies, where 72 candidates were in the fray. Polling was peaceful in Jungle Mahal, a former Maoist stronghold, due to the heavy deployment of security forces. In North India, single-phase polling was held in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Both states saw a healthy turnout. Several bigwigs, including current and former chief ministers of both states, cast their votes in the early hours.
उम्मीद है कि हिमाचल प्रदेश में कांग्रेस पार्टी का चारों सीटों पर प्रदर्शन जो है बहुत अच्छा होगा।
पिछली बार हमने 3 जीती थी, इस बार हमारी आशा भी है, विश्वास भी है, चारों की चारों जीतेंगे।
हम चुनाव जीतेंगे, मुझे पूरा भरोसा है।
In Jammu and Kashmir, voting was held in the 2 parliamentary constituencies of Baramulla and Ladakh. Although voting started on a slow note, it picked up during the day. Ignoring militant threats and the boycott call of separatists, voters thronged the polling stations in the Baramulla constituency, which is spread over 3 districts of Kupwara, Bandipora and Baramulla. While polling was peaceful in the Ladakh seat, violence was reported from various parts of the Baramulla constituency. The injured included 5 security personnel in attacks on 2 polling stations and a security forces camp. Simandhra recorded an impressive voter turnout both in Lok Sabha and Assembly polls. Barring a few incidents of clashes between the workers of YSR Congress and the TDP, polling was largely peaceful in the region that will have a separate identity after the 2nd of June.
Large queues are present in major part of polling booths in Simandhra region. Now the region is going for polls for both to elect both Lok Sabha MPs and their state assembly. In fact, this is the first state assembly after the bifurcation, and we have been witnessing large crowds in almost every polling booth in Simandhra region, and Kurnool district has witnessed 50% up to the afternoon. With few minutes left for the polling, people are still encouraging and people are very encourageous and they want to come in large numbers and they are participating an active role in electoral process in this region.
With the completion of the 8th phase, elections are now complete for 502 of the total 543 Lok Sabha seats. The final phase of polling for the remaining 41 seats will take place on the 12th of May. Counting of votes and results is slated to take place on the 16th of May. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And coming back to West Bengal, former railway minister and the TMC leader Dinesh Trivedi will contest the Lok Sabha election from the Barakpur seat in the state. Trivedi is the sitting MP. Trivedi had to resign as railway minister after differences cropped up between him and Mamta Banerjee. However, after reconciling with the West Bengal chief minister, he is back in the fray. His contest is with Suhasini Haidar of the CPM. Here's a report.
The country remembers the current MP from Barakpur as the former minister who annoyed his party chief Mamta Banerjee with his railway budget. But in his own constituency, despite hailing from North India, Dinesh Trivedi is quite popular. Trivedi has been a Rajya Sabha member twice. He contributed to the end of CPM's reign in 2009 by winning the Barakpur seat for the Trinamool Congress. The affection that his constituents have for him is too apparent. No wonder Trivedi insists there's no regional and linguistic divide in Bengal.
बंगाल की एक संस्कृति है कि वो नहीं देखते कि कौन बिहार से है, यूपी है, आसाम से है, वो सबको ग्रहण कर लेते हैं. कह सकते हैं जन्म से लेकर यहीं बड़े हुए और हम अपने आप को यही समझते हैं कि इन्हीं के साथ है.
2 years have passed since Trivedi spat with Mamta Banerjee it's not something that he wishes to dwell upon anymore. In fact, he would rather talk about his good relations with the West Bengal Chief Minister, to whom he attributes his success.
ये कोई बच्चों का खेल नहीं है कि कोई खफा हो जाता है, कोई खुशी हो जाती है. ये देश चलाने की होती है और हर पार्टी का अपना अपना एक नियम होता है. तो ये आप कह रहे हैं कोई किसी से खफा नहीं था और हम यहाँ हैं, जनता मेरे साथ है. दीदी को बहुत रिस्पेक्ट करता हूँ और दीदी हमें रिस्पेक्ट करती है.
His gatherings in Barakpur may be packed by admirers, but outside he has enough critics who are unhappy with the state of affairs in the constituency.
हम लोग चाहते हैं कि हम लोग का जो रोजगार है, जो यहाँ नेटी जुट में जो चलती है, हम लोग अच्छी तरह से चले. यहाँ के जितने भी मजदूर है सबको अच्छे से काम मिले, क्योंकि बहुत ऐसे लड़के या पढ़ लिख कर भी बेकार हुए हैं.
देखिए हमारी जो नौजुवक है उसकी नौकरी मिले अच्छी, हमारी माता बहनों को नौकरी मिले, बेकारी जो बेकार आदमी है उसको नौकरी मिले, कलकत्ता ना जाने पड़े, इधर उधर भटकने दूसरे प्रांत में जाने ना पड़े.
Barakpur is well known for its jute industry that employs around 10,000 people. Opposition party candidate Subhasini Ali of CPM blames Trivedi for neglecting the industry and contributing to joblessness. The Congress is fielding Shamrat Topadar from the seat, while the BJP is putting up Ramesh Handa as their candidate. But the direct contest for the Barakpur seat is between TMC and the CPM. Trivedi has a very critical battle on his hands, one that will determine if the seat will go back to the CPM, the party that used to once consider its stronghold. Pranav Goswami's report from Barakpur, West Bengal for Rajya Sabha Television.
Several heavyweight candidates faced the election test in the penultimate phase yesterday. Amethi had a high-profile contest with Rahul Gandhi seeking re-election. In Bihar, LJP chief Paswan and RJD chief Lalu Prasad's wife, Rabri Devi, was also in the fray. Here's a look at some of the top contests in that phase.
The 8th phase of polls saw some of the big names contesting in the 7 states where voting was held on Wednesday. With maximum number of seats at stake, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal has the most number of prominent names. In Uttar Pradesh, the most keenly watched contest will be in Amethi, where Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will face stiff challenge from BJP's Smriti Irani and Aam Aadmi Party's Kumar Vishwas. Rahul Gandhi visited some of the booths in Amethi, betraying signs of nervousness for the Congress in one of its safest seats. The Congress Vice President hadn't visited the constituency during voting in the 2009 election.
मेरा फोकस लोकतंत्र को मजबूत करने का है. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को वोट देना चाहिए, महिलाओं को, युवाओं को. ये मेरा लक्ष्य है.
In neighbouring constituency of Sultanpur, Rahul's cousin BJP's Varun Gandhi will also be in fray. Union Minister Beni Prasad Verma is seeking re-election from Gonda, while cricketer turned politician Mohammad Kaif will contest on Congress ticket from Phulpur.
सारे देशवासियों को जाना चाहिए, कम से कम जो वोटिंग परसेंटेज जो अभी थोड़ा सुनने वाले की बढ़ रही, इस साल बढ़ी काफी, तो जो वोट का जनता को जाना चाहिए, वोट डालना चाहिए.
In Bihar, LJP chief Ramvilas Paswan hopes to win Hajipur seat. His party has allied with BJP at the centre. RJD chief Lalu Prasad's wife and former Bihar chief minister Rabri Devi will be in fray from Saran, a seat represented by her husband so far. She is facing tough challenge from BJP's Rajiv Pratap Rudy.
जन समूह है और सब जगह से जो रिपोर्ट आ रहा है, हमको पूरा का पूरा विश्वास है कि हाजीपुर अपना पुराना रिकॉर्ड 1977 का तोड़ेगा.
In Andhra Pradesh, where assembly polls were held simultaneously with voting for 25 Lok Sabha seats, many known faces locked horns in key contests. In the assembly polls, TDP chief Chandrababu Naidu and YSR Congress chief Jagan Mohan Reddy will be contesting as the two potential candidates for the post of chief minister. After casting his vote, YSR Congress chief Jagan Reddy said his party is open to post-poll alliances.
Our interest is at stake. We have all our options.
In the Lok Sabha polls, Jagan's mother Vijay Amma will be in fray from Visakhapatnam, while Congress's KC Deo will seek re-election from Araku seat. Union Minister MM Pallam Raju will look for a straight fourth win from Kakinada seat.
This is my 6th Lok Sabha election, and I have toured extensively all over the constituency, talking about the development done by the Congress party and by myself, and I have told them about the dedication and sincerity with which I have done my duties and the development I have brought to the region.
In Himachal Pradesh, BJP's Anurag Thakur is facing a triangle contest in Hamirpur. Kamal Kanta Batra, mother of Kargil martyr Vikram Batra, is also in fray as an Aam Aadmi Party candidate. The Congress has put up Rajendra Singh Rana, a former BJP leader.
पार्टी के वरिष्ठ नेताओं ने आगे बढ़ने का मौका भी दिया और हमने प्रयास करके मेहनत करके काम किया है। आज जनता के बीच में जाकर उसी बात का फल मिल रहा है कि लोगों ने अपना अभूतपूर्व सहयोग समर्थन दिया है।
In West Bengal, CPM's Basudeb Acharya will lead the Left Front's challenge in this phase. He's up against TMC's new entrant actor Munmun Sen. Singer Babul Supriyo is also in fray from Asansol on BJP ticket. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In Amethi, the Congress and the BJP had a showdown during the voting on Wednesday. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi lodged a complaint to the Election Commission after spotting a lotus, the BJP's poll symbol, sketched inside a polling booth in Amethi. Rahul is contesting from this seat for the third time. At a polling station set up inside a school in Pula village, Rahul raised objections at a lotus flower drawn with a chalk on a blackboard. BJP dismissed Rahul's charges, saying the leader is frustrated over his impending defeat from the seat. Aam Aadmi Party too complained against the Congress leader for travelling with 24 cars on polling day. They also accused the Congress of booth capturing.
राहुल गांधी जी अमेठी से हार रहे हैं, इसलिए अभी से तरह तरह के आरोप लगा रहे हैं। ब्लैक बोर्ड पर कमल किसी बच्चे ने बना दिया था, तो ब्लैक बोर्ड पर तो राहुल जी आप कमल मिटवा सकते हैं, लेकिन अमेठी की जनता और देश की जनता के दिल में जो कमल का फूल और नरेंद्र भाई का चेहरा है, उसे आप मिटा नहीं सकते।
वोटिंग प्रतिशत बढ़ा है, 11 बजे तक 21% हो गया है। मुझे उम्मीद है कि 60 से 70 के बीच चला जाएगा। युवा जिस भारी मात्रा में निकले हैं, वो सारी प्रेस और सबसे एक ही कह रहे हैं बदलाव बदलाव। जहां जहां बूथ कैप्चरिंग खबरें हुई हैं, जहां जहां में आशंका थी, हमने पहले भी चुनाव आयोग से, स्थानीय प्रशासन से हमने वीडियो मॉनिटरिंग की मांग की थी, लेकिन हमारी मांग वो मानी नहीं गई।
And in more news from Amethi, election officials asked Priyanka Gandhi's political secretary Preeti Sahai to leave Amethi on Wednesday afternoon after BJP candidate Smriti Irani complained to the Election Commission that she was trying to influence voters during polling. Irani claimed that Priyanka's secretary entered a polling station without clearance from the poll panel. Irani and Priyanka's secretary had a verbal duel as the former objected to her presence at one of the booths in Jagdishpur area. Following the incident, BJP filed a complaint with the Election Commission on the presence of Sahai at a polling booth at Thodi village in Jagdishpur. According to Election Commission rules, people not registered to vote in the constituencies and those from outside canvassing for candidates have to leave once campaigning ends.
प्रीति सहाय यहाँ की स्थानिक महिला नहीं है। स्थानिक ना होने के बावजूद प्रशासन का तो एक दिशा निर्देश था कि 5 तारीख के बाद यहाँ पर कोई भी व्यक्ति नहीं रह सकता जो स्थानिक नहीं है। तो श्रीमती वाड्रा की जो सेक्रेटरी हैं, वो किस अधिकार से पोलिंग बूथ के अंदर घूम रही हैं?
BJP's prime ministerial candidate Narendra Modi continued with his whirlwind campaign on Wednesday. Addressing multiple rallies in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, Modi claimed Congress may not even open its account in the Lok Sabha polls. He also took on regional parties like Samajwadi Party and JDU in his speeches. Modi also addressed several rallies in West Bengal, hitting out at Mamata Banerjee, saying she does not want good days for the state. Polling for all these constituencies will be held on the 12th of May.
जैसे भाइयों बहनों, कांग्रेस पार्टी कई राज्यों में अपना खाता नहीं खोल पाएगी, उसी प्रकार से उत्तर प्रदेश में सपा हो बसपा हो, यहां पर लालू हो या जेडीयू हो, ये लोग 9 के आंकड़े को पार नहीं कर पाएंगे। 9 के आंकड़े को।
Post May 16th, one of the most tedious tasks that awaits the new government will be carrying out the much-delayed work on tax reforms. The toughest challenge will be to pass a common goods and services tax law, also known as GST. Not only will this make India a unified market, but it will also make business much easier given the advantages of GST. In Agenda 2014, let's take a look at the factors that stalled this all-important tax reform.
One of the most crucial tax reforms waiting to be introduced in India is the goods and services tax. Every party is convinced about why the country needs it. That's why it finds mention in the manifestos of the main national parties. But the idea has remained a non-starter. Politically, it's the subject of a huge controversy.
When a consensus on GST was nearly reached, it was the governments of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat that stalled further progress. Issues that had been settled were reopened. The consensus reached on the draft of the Constitution Amendment Bill was broken and work on the GST bill was interrupted.
The BJP strongly denies the charge. The fact remains that it's not just the BJP. Other state governments have also opposed the measure.
If Gujarat was the only government that was not cooperating, what about the other state governments? Were they all cooperating? Was the bill held up only because of Gujarat's non-cooperation?
With a population of 125 crore, today India has a tremendous buying potential. But despite this, it's a difficult place to do business thanks to those multiple taxes charged by the centre, states and even local bodies.
The most commonly quoted example is that we have or had a system where biscuits were taxed at one rate, biscuits with a cream filling were taxed at a higher rate, and that created a lot of misclassification incentives.
The GST reform needs a constitutional amendment that has to be approved by legislatures of over 50% of the states, which is why forging consensus is not easy.
It is a political grand bargain as much as it is an economic grand bargain. So there have to be compelling political reasons to arrive at a grand bargain, as you would only compelling economic reasons won't do. So you've had these governments coming and going and not succeeding in actually introducing GST, and several deadlines missed, precisely because that political grand bargain has not yet been achieved.
And given the politics surrounding it, parties tend to see each other in adversarial way over GST, which is one major why the reform remains merely on paper. Krishnan Tripaঠি's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's a wrap on this edition of India Votes. Stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television. Have a great day.